You've got to speak up. This thing about dropping our voice, I used to go into movie studios for meetings, and I'd be sitting out in the waiting room, you sit for a few minutes before they call you in, and almost every time somebody would come up to me and drop his voice and say, oh, I saw you on Hannity. I saw you on Beck. And I would always say the same thing. Why are you whispering? We're in the right. And I understand the fear, and I understand, we famously had this supposedly secret organization, the Friends of Abe, out in Hollywood. And I kept saying to the leaders, we've got to go public. And they wouldn't do it because they didn't want the working guys to get caught, the gaffers and the guys who were not movie stars and all this. But I just thought if you act in secret, then you look like you're ashamed. And if you act in secret, you look like you're afraid.
So as a guy that was around that and also was around Hollywood and doing movies and Clint Eastwood, although he's one of the few sane ones we've got, but you've been around the machine. What is it? Have you been able to really unpack, maybe now that you've stepped away from it, what is it that causes that groupthink amongst these people who so often seemingly vote against their own interests? They cannot be happy that the homeless people are now climbing up the Hollywood hills like we're in Walking Dead.
No, it is absolutely true. But, there's certain things, there's certain breaks, walls between them. For instance, in San Francisco, the rich people are living in Silicon Valley. The rich people are not living in the places that they let go down the drain. There is, it's a funny thing because in a way, it's a point that Karl Marx himself might have made. Karl Marx basically believed that your wages had not gone, you hadn't become richer if there was now a bigger divide between you and the really rich people. He believed that it was all relative, so even though you were doing better, if the next guy was doing 10 times better, you were going to be unhappy. And there's a lot of human truth to that. I mean, that's, it's envy, it's covetousness. Those are just human traits. And so we have got a moment now when some of these wealthy people are so wealthy and so detached and so surrounded by other people like themselves and so disdainful of the ordinary men and women who just want to do their jobs and have some fun and, get married and have kids. They're so disdainful of that life that they really have no idea what people are talking about. Some of these people who are accusing, look, I lived out of the country for 7 years. This is the least racist country on earth. It is the least racist country on earth. And when they talk about systemic racism, it's the least systemic racist country on earth, because obviously there are always going to be racist people. But they don't know it. They don't know it. When they talk about, oh yeah, these people are just racist, they believe it because they never see them. They never meet them. They never talk to them. They never listen to them. Some of the stuff that you and I talk about on what is now called conservative media, they've never heard. They have never heard it. And when they discover it, they're absolutely shocked. I mean, Russell Brand, the comedian, he was a very, very bright guy, but he is kind of left of center. When he found out that the Russian collusion thing was a hoax, he went on the air and he said, I'm gobsmacked, I'm flabbergasted. Who knew? Well, we knew. We knew, and we said it all the time. And a lot of stuff that we know ultimately becomes mainstream, but they never stop and say, oh, gee, the right-wingers were telling the truth, and the New York Times and CNN and NBC were all lying. They just never say that. Think of all the people that they made into idols. Andrew Cuomo, what was the other guy's? Michael Avenatti, was that his name? Yeah. And now Dr. Fauci, torturing dogs, eating the faces of dogs.
Literally, you cannot make this stuff up. Eating the faces off dogs that they don't let their paws go to. I mean, it's just insane.
And these are their heroes. And, you'd think at some point they would say, maybe we're not that good a judge of character. Maybe we ought to take another look at Ted Cruz. Maybe he's not a bad guy. Maybe picking on Mike Pence for being true to his wife isn't really a great, look for us. They never do. They never listen to us. They're so separated. They're so sequestered by their wealth and their cultural power more than anything else. Their cultural power has sequestered them that they do not know what they do not know. And that's basically the kind of stuff that the rest of us are talking about. You and I don't agree on everything. Me and Ben Shapiro don't agree, and Michael Knowles. We all have these big arguments. We have a range of opinions on the right. they've just got this one opinion, but they hear it again and again and again, and they think everything else is evil.
So what's the trick? I mean, when I do my weekly Q&As on Thursday, there's always like 10 questions of the same variety, which is, what are the tricks to wake up my friend? How can I bring them back? I can't get them to sit down and watch a PragerU video, or Dave, now you're too scary for them. So I assume you're on the scary list too, Andrew. Like, what are the tricks? You got any tricks? I mean, you were around a lot of these people.
Yeah, two things very important. One is you've got to speak up. This thing about dropping our voice. I used to go into movie studios for meetings, and I'd be sitting out in the waiting room. You sit for a few minutes before they call you in, and almost every time somebody would come up to me and drop his voice and say, "Oh, I saw you on Hannity. I saw you on Beck." And I would always say the same thing. Why are you whispering? We're in the right. And I understand the fear, and I understand, we famously had this supposedly secret organization, the Friends of Abe, out in Hollywood. And I kept saying to the leaders, we've got to go public. And they wouldn't do it because they didn't want the working guys to get caught, the gaffers and the guys who were not movie stars and all this. But I just thought, if you act in secret, then you look like you're ashamed. And if you act in secret, you look like you're afraid. And so all of us, because it's not just artists who are part of the culture. It's not just media people. Everybody is part of the culture. Everybody has a little piece of it, like a candle in their hand. You have got to speak up. You've got to say it politely. You don't have to scream at people. You don't have to get in their faces. You don't have to be Donald Trump. You just politely say, I disagree. And if we don't start doing that, if we let them cow us and silence us, we have no chance. And the other side of it also is right-wingers think that the truth is so important, the facts are so important, that you don't have to be nice about them, that you can scream an ugly truth in someone's face. And Paul Simon said, I don't want you to lie to me, but I want some tenderness beneath your honesty. And right-wingers got to learn that trick, because the left are ugly. They're mean. They call people names. They're disgusting. They cancel people. They bully them. If we don't have a sort of civilized attitude, but when I say civilized, that doesn't mean keeping your mouth shut. It means speaking bravely and clearly in a polite way. Then we're just the same as them. We get lost in the crowd. So if we don't develop some communication skills and some courage, we'll be lost. We'll be swept away because they own the media.
It's so funny because I obviously agree with the sentiment. And then there's this part of me, as someone that's, sort of new to this thing on the right, let's say, that when you see them lie and lie and lie again and know they're lying and we know they're lying and everyone knows the Solzhenitsyn quote and they just keep going, I can somehow see how decent right-wing people that are moderates really start sounding like crazy, angry kooks because the years go by, you try to rationalize, you try to be open, you try to have conversations, they keep lying, things keep getting worse, they're dragging you to hell with them. Next thing you know, you're screaming on the radio for 4 hours a day about whatever it might be. So I'm sympathetic to, even though I get your point, I am sympathetic to the people that it sort of sound like they're nuts at some level.
Me too, because they also gaslight you. So for 30 years, they call you racist, they call you sexist, your God stinks, your country stinks, your history stinks, everything about you stinks. And then Rush Limbaugh comes on the air and he says, well, these feminazis, and everybody goes, where is the civility? What has happened to the civility in this country? So they gaslight you. But if you listen, one of the things that happened to me when I came back from England where I was living, I started listening to Rush just to hear what the fuss was about. And he was so happy and so funny and so kind of sweet-natured with all the stuff that he said that I thought, no, wait a minute. That all the stuff I heard is untrue, and I want to listen to what this guy has to say.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of nonstop yelling, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.